Hey folks, this is Steve with Nonprofit Ally, and I am on Zoom, so this is being recorded by video with Jesse. Jesse Lane, he is the CMO of Pure Charity. They're a nonprofit tech company. They offer a donation platform. They also teach nonprofits how to grow their organizations through innovation, storytelling, digital marketing, online fundraising, and all-around good leadership. So a lot of things we talk about on this podcast. So this is a good match. They also have, we're going to talk about this in the program, a really cool download called State of the Good 2018. We're going to talk a bit about that. So, hey, Jesse, thanks for being on the program.
Hey, excited to be here. Thank you.
All right. Any gaps I missed there? Can I kind of give a general overview of your organization?
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Cool. I did forget to mention the URL, folks. It's at purecharity.com. I'll tell you what, in this intro, I just told you storytelling and innovation and all this stuff. If you go to purecharity.com and just look at the website, there's a story that they run you through just on the main page with videos and pictures and all this stuff there. So if you want a good example of what a good storytelling website looks like, go to the website, look at that main page. Jesse, I have to tell you, I was impressed just looking at the home site.
Thanks. That's encouraging.
Yeah, really good call to actions. Everything's really clearly laid out, videos to explain it. Yeah, this is really cool. So we are going to talk about innovation, in particularly the need to build an innovative culture within a nonprofit. So as we get into this topic, maybe you can just give us a definition of what we're talking about when we're talking about an innovative culture.
Yeah, that's a great starting place. Yeah, I think oftentimes the reason that's so important is because nonprofits have a misconception or a not so great definition of innovation, because in their mind, when they hear innovation, they think expensive or they only think about technology. And so that's oftentimes a blocker, and they kind of turn off when it comes to innovation. So I've got actually a few definitions here I'll run through. So in our State of Good report, which we kind of talk about some of this, and we asked nonprofit leaders if they thought the sector was innovative or not. And the scores were really low, by the way. And the definition we used was creating and executing new methods, ideas, and programs for making needed change. So that's one definition. I was reading the Stanford Social Innovation Review article, and they used a definition I like too. It was for innovation. It said, a break from practice, large or small, that leads to significant positive social impact. And then a friend of ours, Charles Lee, he's really a thought leader on innovation and consults a lot of nonprofits. He just simply says innovation's problem solving. It's that simple. And he used the phrase, we interviewed him recently, and he said it's just taking away pain or adding value. And so hopefully with the three of those, you kind of start to understand that we're not necessarily talking about some crazy, massive change that is expensive and tech only. And I think that's the key to help you start to embrace and want to talk about innovation more.
Cool. I like that. It's kind of theoretical, philosophical, and practical all at the same time without being too stuck in technology, right? Innovation, I always think, as you just mentioned, most people do technology. You're thinking of iPhones and your next whatever gadget, right? But we're talking here at an organizational level of innovation. So you said we ranked score. We scored. We ranked low, right, as nonprofits.
Yeah.
How come? What was it we identified, and how would we know if we are one of those low-ranking nonprofits? Like, well, I need to innovate. That kind of. How do we identify that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the score was 2.91 out of 5, and this is nonprofit leaders and practitioners who, kind of were ranking the sector as a whole on innovation, and we gave them that definition, but we didn't give a whole lot of other ways to consider, and we just wanted to see what people thought. And I think the reason that the score is low is because a large majority of nonprofits and leaders feel like they don't have time or budget to innovate, and so they feel like they're so focused on the urgent and the immediate needs that they can't really think about anything creative or new. And innovation we're talking about is it's something that takes time. It's the long game, and it's why it's so important. But I think that's also often why it is kind of put on the back burner, and why people probably scored the sector as low. And I think, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you the scoring. Like, was it self-scoring, and you asked certain questions, and they were kind of like, we do that, and then we don't do that. We don't.
Yeah. Well, we had both. We had questions that were related to the whole sector. And so we asked specifically rank the sector on this, and this, and then others that were now your specific organization, rank your organization on these.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, people were more positive about their own organizations than they were on the sector. But yeah, I mean, innovation was one of the lower, like the overall health of the nonprofit sector was another question that we asked. And that was basically 1 out of 3 nonprofit leaders said that they didn't think the sector was healthy, and however they kind of define that themselves. Mm-hmm. And we gave some direction for that, which to me, that's pretty concerning too. I mean, 1 out of 3 is quite a bit.
Okay. So I'm going to follow up on that real quick. I was going to ask a different question, but so what determines the health of the sector, right? So is it outside forces? Is it funding? Is it geopolitical? What are the kind of causes that you're gathering from that?
Yeah, well, it's a really, kind of hard question to ask, but, we were trying to really get a gauge on how nonprofits felt about the health, right? So less saying that this is how we're measuring it by these factors and scoring. We just want, like, how do you feel and believe, and do you feel like there's good health and momentum and positive things, or are you concerned and see a lot that you're not so happy about? So we didn't give a whole lot of definition to it. We just wanted them to, and some people struggled with that. They're like, well, what do you mean?
Right.
We saw that in the comments. But we just wanted to understand, like, what's their, overall feeling and gut about how their organization's doing. That was one question. And then how the sector at large is doing.
So how does innovation, right, implementing some type of innovative plan or approach work with strategic planning? Is it integrated within it? Is it separate of it? Or are you saying strategic planning needs to be more innovative?
Yeah, all of the above, but I would say integrated. I think innovation needs to become a part of the strategic plan, a part of the budget, a part of the routine and the rhythm and the life of a nonprofit. And so that's kind of what we mean by culture, right? Of innovative culture. It's just baked in to how the staff and leaders think about decisions. And that's one thing I would call out. It's one of the most important things about creating an innovative culture is that everyone in the organization feels empowered to be innovative or think outside of the box, think about areas that are not necessarily on their job description, think about the long-term future of the organization, and even some big crazy ideas that are likely to fail, and just giving freedom for that is a good step in the right direction toward that culture. And unfortunately, sometimes nonprofits or organizations will say, we're embracing innovation, but really they've said that, the leaders will be innovative and really that's their job. Or maybe there's a creative team, like this team, they're innovative because that's what they do. But the operational guys or the programs or the, human resources, they're not really empowered to be innovative. And so I think that's not really the culture of innovation that you want.
Yeah, actually, I heard that before, is kind of giving that ownership to everyone there. Most of the organizations that listen to Nonprofit Ally are smaller. If they have a dozen employees, they're probably getting on the larger side of the audience. So there are certainly people that have a lot more than that who listen. And I certainly bring in speakers who are from large organizations, so we can relate with everybody. But the idea of trying to be inclusive and bringing in your staff and everyone that's involved and even volunteers to be innovative and not be afraid to share their innovative ideas with someone in the organization and potentially to act on it. So the that approach, I mean, there's a philosophy and approach to bringing that out, and like the team building part of it, and I'm not sure we want to go in that direction. But what I would like to see is the I just had the question in my head. It'll come back to me. What's it look like? So first of all, how do we identify that we're not being innovative? I guess that's the thing. People are like, well, I think we're being innovative. We have the latest platforms. We have cool new programs in the community. How do we know that this applies to us?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's a little bit easier for smaller organizations to, in some ways, because they're less entrenched in their the status quo, and they're a little more agile. But it's also more difficult in some regards because they don't feel like they have the margin. Oftentimes, there's an executive director is wearing multiple hats. They're doing it all. So I think that's a good place to start. And I think one of the ways to ask to kind of evaluate yourself is just, are you working on something that isn't directly related to like the next few months, or even the next year? And, so essentially, are you giving some time till the long term? Because if you're not, then you have to ask yourself, is that healthy, first of all, for the long-term sustainability of the organization? And it also, you have to ask yourself, are you really being innovative? Or maybe you're doing things differently, and that's good. But I think I'd like to challenge nonprofits, at least for some percentage of their work, to be not working on the urgent thing, not working even on the fundraising event that's in 6 months, but what they're building for the future, the 2-3 years down the road. And then we're starting, and that really challenges you to think differently, because we know times are changing, the world is changing, and we want our organization to grow and change. And so when we think that far out, it allows us to go, I think, to a different place. And then you're starting to get into that innovative place, I think.
Okay. So, kind of like being proactive instead of reactive in some sense. So are you thinking far enough ahead at maybe future programs that are being developed, or future, whatever, something that might be in your strategic plan, and how you may address that? Because the idea, it seems kind of obvious. If you're only working in the here and now, then how can you be innovative if you're not thinking about what might be coming, or how to make it better, or where the direction of the program or organization as a whole is going? Okay, cool. So that's one self kind of evaluation. Are you thinking in the future? Are you thinking ahead to where you're going? What other things may an organization kind of do to self-evaluate their level of innovation?
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think, back to that empowerment, asking your team, even if it's a small team, and yourself, do they feel empowered to fail, or, freedom to fail? And just a quick ask of that question isn't probably going to get to the root of the real answer, but really starting to ask yourself and the team, do you feel free to fail, is a question you want to kind of ask yourself. And then, do people feel empowered to really try something new and different, that's innovative, that's risky in their area of the organization, whatever that may be? And or are they nervous of what could happen if it doesn't go well? And I think getting a temperature on that, engaging how people feel about that. Oftentimes you'll talk to staff and like, if they don't feel empowered, but you really start to dig in, you'll all of a sudden they have all these ideas and they've been sitting on them, right? And they're like, well, I kind of didn't want to say this. It wasn't my place. It wasn't my job, but yeah, I've got this idea about this. And it's not my responsibility. So I haven't said anything. I don't want to step on toes, but I've got these ideas. And then, yeah, I've got this idea. And that's awesome. I mean, you really want people to feel the freedom to share those at any point in time. And if they're not sharing them already, then they're probably not feeling empowered to do so.
Right. So you're talking, that's the culture then there. So somehow you have to, not just have that in existence, but maybe give them a way to do that. Like, this is how I want to, like, some people are very process oriented and they're kind of very like, well, this is my role in the organizational chart, so I can only talk about this to this person. And like, somehow to maybe include it in the organizational structure, or somehow to maybe a formal way of applying your ideas if people are that rigid, right? I guess it just depends on organization to organization. The organizations I ran were always a handful of people, so we saw each other daily, and we were just I was always like, how about this idea, let's do this, and so by me just doing that, I'd get their feedback. 50% of the time they're like, nah, that's not a good idea. But it also encouraged them to say, I like this idea better, or let's try this. And then, so it really created that culture just by me going asking them, right? So I guess that's one way too, is if you're the leader of your organization, is to go bounce your ideas off of people and be open to that feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good example of modeling it, as a leader. That's important. And so, you can't really create a culture without modeling, the culture that you want. And so it sounds like you're doing a good job of that.
Yeah. So any other ideas? Again, we're trying to do a self-evaluation of our level of innovation. So right now we have just thinking in the long term, and then allowing this freedom to try and bounce ideas off of each other. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is kind of toward the solutions, I think, but asking yourself, is there a structure or any kind of formal way to innovate? Is there any kind of, process for that? And again, in a small organization, it's like, is that necessary? But even as simple as, this is the meeting where it would be good to share that, that's at least some structure. Now, I've been in organizations of, 300-400 staff, nonprofits. And so the formal structure for innovation was way more complex and needed to be, but it was just as important. And I think it always is important to have, so people know what is the way to innovate and the path for that, and how do I step into that? So that would be one, like, do you have that defined? And it could be as simple as, hey, everybody, if you have an innovative idea, share it on Friday mornings at this time. Or if you have a big idea, I want to push you for that. At least you've got some structure around it. So that would be one thing. Do you or don't you have that? And then the last kind of thought about innovation, or what you said, evaluation around innovation would be: is there budget and budgeted time, money, or space for it? And so I think you've got to build an environment, a sandbox, a lab, and it really goes a long ways, again, for culture building and invitation. If you tell people, I want you to prioritize this kind of work, spend 10% of your time on it, everyone in the organization, on things that aren't your current project, aren't your day-to-day work, something that's big, long-term, bigger picture. Is there budget for it? Do you have space for it? So if someone had a great idea, that's just barely getting started on innovation. Really, the hard part about innovation isn't the idea. A lot of people have ideas. The hard part is making the change necessary to implement that, and really sticking with it until it's executed. And so I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's that like an implementation plan of some type. Okay, that's a great idea. What's this look like? Yeah,
exactly. And that's really the hard part. And I think if you don't have any budget for it, if you don't plan for it, then you're just not going to be able to say yes when those ideas come up, because it does have real costs usually. And so I think earmarking both time and a percentage of your budget, even if it's small, just to say, this is to do big, crazy, or long-term ideas only, and we're not going to use it on anything else. I think that would be a good marker. If you don't have that, maybe you're not having an innovative culture. So
yeah, if you don't create space for it, then you're saying it's not important. Like you got to have a space for it, whether it's time, budget, or some way of making it available. Okay, so we went through we described what it is, what it means to be innovative. We've gone through kind of a self-evaluation on how we can determine whether we're being innovative or not. And maybe that sparks the question, can you ever be innovative enough? Because it seems like it's always in front of you, right? It's like something you might always be chasing. But let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty then. So kind of we have some stagnant programs. We really don't have space for this. What are the steps that we want to incorporate, like that spark that innovation into the nonprofit, so that we can maybe some practical ideas or tips on how to implement this, or
Yeah.
what innovation looks like, right? Because the theory, the idea of it at the beginning was like, yeah, sounds right, but I'm still having a hard time picturing what this looks like
Yeah.
in my hands.
Sure. No, that's important. So I think I've got three kind of steps or things you can do to foster this culture of innovation and start sparking these type of ideas, but not just ideas, but a way to implement them. And so I'll go through all three real quick, and then we can unpack each one. But we've already touched on a little bit of a couple of these. So the first one, I think it's really important to define or redefine innovation. And so we've kind of started to do that here. Your organization needs that too. And so if there may be a bad connotation with it, or like, oh, well, this isn't good stewardship, this isn't good use of our funds because it's expensive and risky. And if you want to build that culture, if you value it as a leader, you're going to have to help your team value it as well and understand. I think not only that it's important, but there's somewhat, in some organizations, it's urgent that there is innovation and change, because our world is changing so fast. In order to keep up and continue to be relevant, sometimes there's an urgent need for innovation. And so helping your organization see the urgency, see the importance, and understand truly what you mean by innovation. And really, each organization probably needs to define that themselves and kind of say, this is what this looks like for us. But it starts there, and with that definition, and I would say that begins down the path of empowerment, which is what we talked about. That helps you start to empower it. And so defining and empowering innovation, I think not just saying it once or twice, though. It's one of those things, again, to change culture, you've got to repeat yourself. And good leaders know that sometimes you have to repeat yourself so many times that you're so sick of saying it. And that's just when people start hearing it, And so saying we want to innovate once or twice a year isn't enough, but really bringing that definition to the table, bringing it to the organization in creative ways all over the place, putting it on the wall, bringing it up consistently. People will start to hear it then if you repeat that over and over again, and really and have a mantra related to innovation. So that's defining and empowering it. And then I can talk more about that. That's number one. And then investing in what I would call a sandbox or a lab. And I can unpack that. And then three, I would say, is celebrating success and failures, both. So those are the three buckets.
Cool. So again, like you said, we kind of covered the first part of that already, but we didn't talk about the sandbox or the rewarding part of it. So we identify within the organization what innovation means and we empower people to do it, right? At which point we're going to create, I know the word sandbox from technology, right? And most people know it seems really a self-defined kind of like a sandbox. Right. We're going to play around, and and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you destroy it and build another one. So, so how do you create that sandbox within an organization where maybe that innovative idea has been approached and someone's like, yeah, and so you have some buy-in, and you're like, well, let's do this. Does that mean actually implementing the program, or writing out the planning, or finding the budget, or or all of that, or?
Yeah, I think it's what we've already talked about a little bit. It's putting structure around it, and so for instance, giving a specific place and time for it. So a specific idea might be, a Shark Tank style presentation every quarter. Where you invite people to be thinking and preparing a presentation, and every quarter you want to have a panel of people that are kind of that you're presenting to, and whoever wants to present can come and share their big ideas. And that's the moment every quarter you're going to have where you're kind of shining a spotlight on these ideas, giving people a voice, and calling it out. And again, some structure like that. It doesn't have to be that. It could be a monthly meeting. It could be a team. Like I've been on a couple different innovation task forces, where it's from across. If you have a little bit larger organization, you've got people representing every area of the organization. There's a lot of diversity, and you come together and you form a brain trust and your goal is to make sure the organization is always moving forward in innovation and pushing forward ideas, and you're inviting those and encouraging that, however that looks. But it just means someone's always thinking about it. I would just say, don't call it a committee, because that, to me, that's like a bad word. No one wants to be on a committee.
I want to be on Shark Tank, though. I like that idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You do want to be on Shark Tank, just not on a committee. But so those are some specific ideas of giving it some structure, and call that a sandbox, call that innovation lab. But then back to what we talked about earlier as well, I think you've got to make time, budget, and space for it. And so I really like the idea of saying everybody's got to spend 10% of their time on big ideas or innovative ideas. And the way I've done that in the past is, for my team, I said Friday afternoons. It's kind of a good day for that. It's a little slower around the office or whatever. Friday afternoon, I want you working on something different than you did all week, something creative and big. And a lot of times we would spend that time actually meeting together for an hour or two, and then spend the last 2 hours of the day. So it's about 4 hours, which is 10% of 40 hours, just again, working on these fun, creative things. And people, man, they were so energized by that 4 hours. And they were just so excited. They think about it all week and all weekend and get excited because it's the chance to really dream big. And so that was 10% of everybody on the team's time. It was strongly encouraged that they participate in some form or fashion, although it didn't have to be a certain way. And it was an energizing thing for our team and our culture, and it resulted in some really cool ideas.
I like that.
Yep.
You talk about empowering, right? You're going to your team members and being like, I seriously am requesting information from you, and you're going to present it, and we're going to give you time to do it. And like, you're putting value on that, and you've just empowered them at the same time. And it sounds like it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And so I think time, we talked about budget a little bit,
right.
Earmark some budget, and then even space. Now, again, I know some organizations, they don't have much space, but I like to say, like, dedicate some physical space to innovation. So I've seen innovation, whole conference rooms, and like basically become innovation labs. And it's the space to go and kind of think big and dream and think creatively. And so you put in these little physical elements that really help, whether it be, just Post-it notes of all different colors and markers with whiteboards everywhere, or, creative magazines to spark ideas. Lots of good coffee is important for me. And music playing all the time. If you have the space to do that, if you don't have a whole conference room to dedicate to it, or maybe it can just be a corner with one chair and one little desk, and that's where you go to step outside of the norm. And that physical movement away from your normal desk to that space actually does something, and it helps you shift your mind. And even if it's just as small as a box, like here's a shoe box with some Post-it notes and markers, some paper to draw on, maybe a couple magazines or something to spark ideas. And you just say, I'm going to take this box and I'm going to walk somewhere and I'm going to think outside of the box, And so just giving some physical space actually goes a long ways.
You guys should invent the innovation app, and then it could just be an iPad, and people could be like, I want to, and they could like bring things into there. And anyways,
I like it. Yeah, let's go do that.
Innovation. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Outdoors, it's great. If you have a picnic table outdoors, right? People can go outside and things like that. So those are always good ideas. Now, you mentioned also you have a couple of slides over there. I don't know if we've touched on anything that deals with those, but maybe we can jump into those if they're relevant to what we're talking about now.
Sure, yeah.
What's the topic here on that? Because I've been following what we've been following, but I remember you said at the beginning you have some stuff there.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of it actually already. So there's not a whole lot of new value there. I mean, so there's not much more to show, but it's just kind of, I've just got outlined the 3 points there So
Okay.
I can pull that up if you'd like. But
We could do a quick overview. That will be a summary, and we'll use
okay,
those slides. I think the visual presentation, except for the people listening and not watching on YouTube, but
sure, yeah,
for those people, I'll explain what we're watching.
yeah. Let me do that real quick.
If you can share your screen, I'm going to put you full screen here. Let me change my view here. Hey, folks, while he's doing that, you also remember, like, we're talking about innovation and all this research they've done and this really cool download that they have, the State of Good 2018. That's available, obviously. The other thing is that Pure Charity does multimedia and storytelling and digital marketing. They do more than that. They have a fundraising platform. So be sure to check them out. We are just talking about one little thing that they're doing here, in this case, focusing on innovation, but there certainly is more. It looks like the slide is up. We'll run through these quick. There's about a half a dozen or so in there, but we're on the landing.
Yeah, and I won't go through all these. These are actually so what we're looking at here is actually the full State of Good report. You can go find it here and download that. It's just purecharity.org/ally.
That's right. They made a page just for you guys, folks.
Right.
We'll make sure this is in the show notes, but purecharity.org/ally will send you right to the page where you can download that State of Good.
Yep. Yeah, which will be good as you follow along. There's a lot more than just the innovation on there, but let me actually slide down here. I'll just fly through this. This is where we pull out how only 1 out of 3 said the sector was healthy. Here's the 3 points. This is kind of what I'll leave up here. So this is, what I would say the 3 big steps of fostering that culture of innovation. We talked about defining and empowering innovation, creating an innovation lab, or like we called a sandbox. And then we haven't talked a lot about celebrating success and failure, but just like I talked about creating structure for innovation and really some sort of flow and format, I'd incorporate stories of success and failure as well. And so the success stories are easy, but even I think going back in your history, maybe you're like, we don't have a lot of innovative stories to tell. I would say every nonprofit has innovation at the core. That's really the good news, because nonprofits exist to make change. They exist to solve a problem. And so I think that's essentially what innovation is. So even your founding story is oftentimes an innovative one. And if you look back in your history, you can really celebrate those stories of innovation as another way of fostering that culture and helping people see, wow, this is really valued here, and look how they did it in the past. I want to kind of think big like that too. So those are your success stories. But then, really, and people say this all the time, it's difficult to actually do it, but to really celebrate failure even, and say, like, look, this person went for it and it didn't go as planned, but let's celebrate that they went for it, that they took the risk, because we're okay with that around here,
Yeah, and a lot of times from that failure, everyone hears this, it's kind of cliche, but you do learn from failure, and it takes you in new directions. Like, that didn't work, but up to this point it did. We need to turn left instead of right next time.
Exactly.
So that's always good to know. Yeah, so that's one thing we actually didn't talk about. We talked about the define and empower. We talked about creating an innovative lab, and but the success and failure portion of that. Now, is that again a time space thing? You need to kind of make sure you allot some time somehow in some way, whether it's through meetings or posters or emails to do that.
I think so. I mean, I personally, if I don't plan it, I don't do it. And so if this is important to you, plan it. Say, I'm going to incorporate this into something I'm already doing. So if you send a newsletter out to your team, if you have a weekly meeting or an annual meeting or whatever it is, wherever you feel like it's appropriate, incorporating those stories. And really, stories is one of the best ways to celebrate success and failure. And so, but there's other ways too. And I would say, get, serious rewards, like bonuses and perks and days off, and you're really going to start motivating people at that point. So you can throw a little party for a project launch, and that's fun and celebratory, and that's kind of what we think about. But I think there's other ways to actually incentivize people that hey, I'm serious about this. We need to be thinking about the future. If you are going for it and you're doing that, maybe the Shark Tank, the winner of the Shark Tank doesn't just get a pat on their back, but they actually get some sort of significant reward or incentive, then that's the kind of celebration that actually motivates people and communicates that we actually value this. We're not just doing it to say that we're innovative or because it sounds cool, but we actually do put money where our mouth is. And so it's a big deal.
Cool. Anything else in this presentation down here, folks? What we're just looking at is kind of the 3 points we just talked about. I'm not sure if it goes in further or is it going in the direction?
These are just, so this is, as you see on the left, these are just the state of good. I just plopped these in for you guys. Let's
kind of wrap up with that, I think, because that state of good has more than what we just talked about. So maybe you can touch on some of the things that you discovered within that state of good report. And we can, I think that's a good way to kind of wrap up here. I think.
Well, I'll just go to the table of contents. It does a good job kind of unpacking what's within it. Obviously we don't have time to cover the whole thing, but within it, we got a feel, like we talked about, of the overall health and state of the nonprofit sector. How do people feel like their organization and the sector as a whole is doing? And there were some alarming findings there. And one really specific thing I'll show is we found that executive leaders, executive directors and C-level leaders were actually the most critical of the sector, kind of a significant jump from all respondents. And so that's really interesting. I think it raises some concern about, how they're talking, how they're leading their teams, just kind of a red flag to kind of say, be careful that you're not overly critical as a leader. But so that was kind of surprising to us.
Yeah. I'll point out real quick, folks. So we're looking at just a pie graph of some type. Now, all respondents, 34% said no to being innovative, whereas executive leaders taken out of that, there's almost a 10% jump of 43% said no to that. So that is a significant jump at the health of the health of the sector.
Yeah, that's right. And then we go into some of the top reported challenges for nonprofits. And
wait. I want to give 1 second. Everyone, I want you to think in your head, what do you think the top number one, for those who aren't watching, because all you who've seen this visually know it, but think in your head, what do you think it is? Because chances are you're right. Number one is, yes?
Yep. It's the fundraising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second one is pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah. So the first one, everybody, 58%, so we allow people to choose their top 1 to 3. And so this isn't going to add up to 100%, but by far the dominating answer was fundraising and lack of funding. Number 2 was socio-political environment. Yeah. Which was really interesting. And I think we want to, after this report, we're like, man, we got to dig in more to that. Like, what exactly?
What's that mean? Yeah, exactly.
Then lack of incentive for donors to give was number 3, which is kind of related to fundraising, but different. And then competition was number 4, which is really interesting in that space. There's a whole nother podcast about that. Like, are we competitors or collaborating? And that
right. And what's that referred to is that, again, towards funding, because grants are getting more competitive because there's less of them and nonprofits are being born every day.
Exactly.
Well, we don't have to go through the whole list, but that's the top 4, folks. The top reported challenges, again, fundraising number 1, almost by 60%. But of the respondents, and obviously people are choosing more than one here because this is over 100% as I add these up. But another social political, I should say, lack of donor incentive, and it's too competitive. So innovation's on there though, number 5, and it's only like 1 point off. So we're hitting on a lot of things there.
Yeah,
this is great. Let's keep going. I love stats. People know I love stats.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I won't go into it, but we were really surprised to find that the answers were so significantly different between larger and smaller organizations. I guess you shouldn't be surprised, but just dramatically. And so in their challenges, that's the fundraising was by far number 1 for smaller nonprofits. But for larger nonprofits, it fell way down to number 3. And so in like the percentage was way dramatically lower than the 58% for all, so it's just, it's kind of obvious, right? Well, they're larger, so they must be doing well financially, but I've been a part of a large nonprofit, and it's still a huge pressure to continue to grow and to have fundraising, but this shows that they're also shifting their thought toward bigger picture questions is the way I would say it. And one that jumped to the top of the list is, or number 2 actually, is too slow to change and can't keep up with ever-changing world, which to me is similar to innovation. It's,
right. And the chart we're looking at is for larger nonprofits, where they put that at number 2, whereas we talked about the other one. It makes sense. We'll go back to the fundraising. Like you said, it makes sense sort of as you get bigger, funding is more secure. Likely they have staff helping with the funding. So it's an issue, but maybe they're not as worried about it because it's covered. Whereas with smaller organizations, it's part of your resources. You're using resources to do that, people time. But in any case,
That's right.
Number 1 on here, folks, this is top rated challenges for larger nonprofits. So for smaller nonprofits, fundraising was number 1, but for larger,
they put socio-political environment. Yeah. So that that's at the top, which is really interesting. And again, let's see where they put it. Smaller organizations had it quite a bit lower for number 4.
Yeah.
Versus number 1 for larger.
Wow. You should have a study of the study. That's great.
I know. It definitely begs a lot of questions, which is fascinating.
Yeah. It makes, is it just the here and now? Is affecting it, or not that we want to get political, but
that's
here and now it's unavoidable. It's the elephant in the room. So,
exactly.
Okay, cool. So let's do a couple more, and I think we're getting close to wrapping up.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about, and this isn't data, but we talked a little bit about some cultural shifts disrupting the sector. And a lot of where this came from was the comments. So we don't have numbers to represent it, but we read through hundreds of comments. People would just write us a lot of things in the survey where we gave them space to do that. And so as we culled through that, these are 4 things that came up over and over again that people were kind of talking about or asking about, and some of them more than others. Some of them were things that we feel like are shifts, but like, for instance, tax reform was brought up so many different times, and just people really feeling insecure about what some of the tax reform means for their giving and for their nonprofits. And so we talked a little about each one of those. New demographics, that refers to, so another cultural shift we talked about was new demographics and new expectations. And really we saw in the comments people talking about, millennials. We also saw people talking about different kinds of demographics, diversity of givers, and the United States changing the makeup of the country. And so people were asking questions about how is that going to affect their organization. Some nervous that they're not attracting millennials and they don't know how. Some feeling like they need to diversify their board. But, important questions like that are just, again, shifts that are really kind of disruptive and important to be considering for the long term.
Yeah, that's awesome. A top one, I don't know if that's, you just put them in there. I don't think it's which one's most important, really. but something that is on there is the future is female. So these are cultural shifts that are affecting the nonprofit sector. And I think that's great to see.
Yep. The future is female, and then tech brings access. Yep.
Tech is, that's a whole nother topic, but wow, tech is bringing so much, and it's becoming easier and more helpful. Cool. One last point here. We don't want to divulge your whole,
it's just a lot to cover.
Yeah, it is. I don't want to go through the whole thing either, because then no one's going to download it. So it's worth downloading and having this in your hands, folks. Again, we're just going through the State of Good report for 2018 that Pure Charity has conducted this report.
Yeah. So we'll finish with this one if you want to do one more slide.
Let's do that.
Okay, so what we're looking at for the listeners is the top priorities for the nonprofit sector. And to me, what we're asking here is, where are you going to be investing and focusing on in 2018? And so these questions were asked toward the beginning of the year and kind of looking out. And so we asked this exact same question about the sector as a whole, like where should the sector be investing? and this was at the beginning of the survey. So it's kind of like, where should the whole sector, if you're thinking at large, be investing? And then we asked later in the survey, when we were asking about their specific nonprofit, the exact same question: where do you feel is most important for your organization to focus and invest?
Mm-hmm.
And there's, you'd think they would be pretty similar, but there's some dramatic differences.
There's some dramatic shifts in here between what the nonprofit sector needs to do and what they think their nonprofit needs to be doing. Go ahead.
So it was really interesting. I love that the number one answer for the sector was people, recruiting, leadership, and human resources. I mean, I think that they got that answer correct. If there's a right answer, I think that's it. I mean, I think the people in your team and that your organization is the future of your organization, your most important asset.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that answer. It went quite a bit down for their nonprofit, which it was still number 2, but less people selected that. But the number one answer by far if you're asking about my nonprofit, where are we actually going to be investing in? It's fundraising,
Right.
And if you look at this chart, and if you download the report and look at this chart or watch the video, you'll see, I mean, it is a dramatic difference between, they don't think the sector should be investing in fundraising, but we're going to,
Yeah, it's a bar graph we're looking at, and the fundraising line for my nonprofit needing the fundraise is almost to the end of the paper at 26. I guess that's 26%. And then in general, that the nonprofit sector needs to be fundraising, that's down 7%. So it's what is that? 4 times?
Yeah.
4 times. Yeah. That's,
so we talk about that a little bit. We have a whole slide dedicated to that. Disconnect, if you will.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So, yep.
Well, great, man. So tell us again, I'd like to give you an opportunity, like where we can find you, how we get in touch with you, sure. Social platforms to get a hold of. And again, folks, there's a URL here for this. Actually, I bet when you go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pop a window open. People won't see it, but you can go ahead and switch your screen off if you want, and then we'll go back to or where we were. And cool. Yeah, if you go to the URL, purecharity.org/ally, you're going to be on a landing page that's going to, give you the opportunity to get this download, State of the Good 2018, but also on here, you'll be on their website. So you can see all the different things that Pure Charity does with their social links. But why don't you go ahead and fill in some of those blanks? How do we get a hold of you to learn more? And what are you guys focusing on now? What's your innovation? How's that? Let's do that. What's your innovation right now?
That's a great question. Well, I started by saying innovation isn't just technology, but that's our primary source of innovation. We are a software platform, a technology that nonprofits can use to grow, save headaches, to simplify their life. And so we primarily help with donation management and processing. So if all you've got is a PayPal giving on your page, and you want to level up and have a more robust kind of giving experience, a more user-friendly one, we can help with that. And then some of our features, we have peer-to-peer fundraising, which should allow people to really tap into their networks and their fans and allow them to fundraise for you with peer-to-peer. And so Pure Charity makes that super easy to launch and do. And then we also have a platform for trip management. And so organizations that take a lot of trips internationally use this to keep it all together instead of using spreadsheets to manage it all, and allow all the people going on those trips to fundraise independently, and all the data comes together in Pure Charity. And then we have a sponsorship program. And so if a nonprofit is wanting to launch a sponsorship program, like for instance, a child sponsorship where they connect people to a specific child, or maybe an animal sponsorship program, then you could use our technology, our software, to track all that, to connect people, to bring all the giving together and keep it all in one place, and run reports and all of it in Pure Charity. So that's kind of our primary business and we're actually a nonprofit too. Mm-hmm. And so, but we have this technology, and then like you said at the beginning, we also coach nonprofits with our content, with our training. We have webinars this report, State of Good. We're launching our own podcast called State of Good, actually, in the next month. And so we'll be doing more podcasting. So yeah, we'd like to help in any way we can, just help nonprofits grow. That's our passion.
That sounds awesome. Hey, this was a really cool conversation. It's I'd say the first time we've talked about innovation in particular, and some great insight into this. And it's important stuff to know. So, Jesse, I appreciate you being on the program.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Steve.